Alrighty, I'm going to switch out. So this is the Forstner bit that I used to counterbore this side. And this is going to be the drill bit that I use for the for this, and I'll show you why. I have a neodymium magnet on my chuck key. So I have this pretty slick hole gauge here that I've had literally forever. So this is 10 millimeter, which is somewhere in here, which is around 3/8. Okay, 10 millimeters, almost 3/8. It's actually smaller. Okay, so that's 3/8 for our. Okay, so 3/8 is a little bit bigger than 10 millimeter. And I'm actually going to go one size larger. So 3/8 is one size larger than 10 millimeter, and I'm actually going to use a 13/32 drill bit to do this job with. Now, for a couple reasons. One is when I put these in, I want to make sure I have room to breathe, room to move inside the hole. Adhesive, and I'm going to show that part of the process too, is actually what holds these in. So, I don't want it too tight in the hole for a lot of reasons. Expansion and contraction is the biggest one. Story of my fucking life. All right, let's see if we can just choke up on the drill bit a little bit. Okay. Now, let's just make sure our drill is running true-ish. It's as true as this shitbox drill ever runs. Okay, so I'm just gonna do. Yeah, I should have it mounted in a vise. Okay. Now we got that. It goes in there. I'm actually going to trim this off real quick. I'll be right back. Just going to show how you do this. George has these really cool nippers here. So I'm just going to score this and then just tap it off. Oh, you rat bastard. Breathe that in. Okay, so then that just snaps off. Yes, I know it's not straight, but that's okay. We don't have to worry about that right now. What we want is plenty of room at the base here. This particular piece is very unique in that we've got a lot of room here. My other ones are generally a lot shorter, but that's okay. Now, I've got to swap out this drill bit for these countersinks. Don't try that at home, kids. I'm a professional. Okay, so interesting. Well, it's not interesting. The taper here isn't the same as that taper, so I actually have to taper it twice. And this is one of the parts of the project that take an inordinate amount of time to get right. That's also why I drilled the hole larger, because I knew going into this how big that, knowing that the taper wasn't correct. During our creation process, we probably could get those tapers a little bit closer. But quite frankly, as I'm building these, as I'm making them, as I'm creating them, and the last thing I'm thinking about is, wow, is that an annoying noise? Okay, so we've reached an interesting, it's interesting, right? So this is what really takes a long time. I'm actually going to have to go in here and very carefully trim this lip here to make this fit so it fits nice and flush. If I leave it the way it is, which I could do, it's not really gonna, it's not gonna look right. It's not gonna look nice. It's not gonna look fine. It's not gonna look like it's worth $50 to $100. Okay, so this needs to be cleaned up. This hole needs to be cleaned up, and I'm gonna do that off camera with a razor knife, and I'll just go in here and I'm just gonna clean that up so it fits this taper just a little bit better. Okay. All right, so I had a little bit of a moment of clarity. It's the first time I've tried this, and it worked really well. So I did use a razor knife to take out the gross amount of material here. I just stuck it in there and like, carved it out. I'm not much of a wood carver. And then I took some 180 grit sticky sandpaper I have. This is 3M Gold that I use in the body shop. And I jammed it in the hole, and I just kind of lapped it in, which worked shockingly well. Now the next thing I need to do here, and I forgot, is I need to determine a front and a back, and I need to determine the path of the cord. Now there's a couple ways I could do the cord on these. My partner had an incredibly good idea. Actually, you can tell this is one that I made because it's crooked. As it goes around the circle, it's out of round. So that's kind of what we need to look at here with these. Now, yesterday, if you watched part 1 of this video, which was me making this base from a raw piece of lumber, you'll know that I have this. Okay, so this is determined that it's going to be the back of the piece. It's just not as smooth as I'd like it to be. This old cherry just kind of didn't want to cooperate, and I took some chunks out of it that I can't get rid of without seriously undersizing the piece. And they really don't show up a whole lot, but they bother me. So this is going to be the back side of the piece. So I'm just going to put a little witness mark here. Then I'm going to take my centering jig and I'm going to mark a path, at least the beginning of a path. Okay, so that's a pathway where I want the cord to run. Now I'm going to try a new way of doing this on camera because that really adds to the excitement. Now I got this attachment for my Dremel that I've used to do similar things like this. This isn't how I've been doing it, but not for nothing, I caught my finger with the Dremel the other day doing this. Now granted, I do cut myself a lot, but that one kind of stung a little bit and took every bit of a week to heal. I'm getting old. Okay, so all right. This thing's pretty cool. I got it years ago. It kind of turns your Dremel into like a router kind of thing. Now this is not a wood cutting bit. This is a carbide for cutting metal. But it works on wood. It just gets jammed up. Future iterations of these are probably going to be done differently, but this is the way I'm doing this one. I've done these different pretty much every time to try to find the best way. So this is just another experiment. One of the things with routers is you really want to take as light a pass as you can the first time, just to make sure, especially with Dremels, and these things get out of hand really quick. Eventually I'll get this to a point where I have the tools and the jigs all set up, so this is like it'll take like 2 seconds to do it. And so right now we're in this is test mode. One of these days, I will turn this Dremel off the right direction. I'm going to take a pass. And no, I really do need a light. Okay, that's perfect, actually. That went in there really nice. That's a couple of the last ones I did. The cord didn't lay in as nicely as I had wanted it to, so they wobbled a little bit when they were sitting down. This is going to get a piece of black felt glued to the bottom of it. So now, because cords, cables don't like to make 90-degree bends, and 90-degree bends are not natural, I'm just going to carve a little bit of a relief on this side here. Hey, I did it. All right, so now we have our light here. Stick that in there, and that's a nice gentle bend. Ironically enough, I need to take a little bit more off of here because this heat shrink is actually hitting right there. You can't see it from your angle, but I can see it from my angle. So we're just going to relieve a little more. Yeah, never mind. That way, you lose. Ah, did it wrong. Okay, now let's see this again. That's all the way in. That's there. Yeah, that's nice. Okay, now we can just show real quick here what I had to do. I'm just gonna use my pointing stick here. So you need to relieve this edge here, or I need to relieve this edge here. So when the wire goes in, it lays nice and flat in there and doesn't poke up at all. I might even take a little more out of that. Okay, now, so that's there, that's there, that's there. I kind of like that. Okay, so now this is eventually all going to get glued in. All right, so now that worked really well. I like that technique. That's how I cut my finger the last time, because visual demonstrations are always the most hilarious. Let's turn the soldering iron off before I melt something. So I was using one of the much smaller I was doing one of the much smaller ones, and I had the Dremel in my hand like this, and I went yoink. You can actually see right where you can see right where the Dremel went right into my finger right there, which was not fun. I'm not complaining. Well, I am complaining. Boo-hoo. But I am a man, so shrug that off. All right, now. Oh, there it is. I'm going to give this just another quick little bit of a lapping. Okay, so that fits in there pretty nice. I may actually trim that down just a little bit more. I can only trim it so much. I do have a grinder, which I'm going to use to square it up. I'm going to shut the camera off. I'm going to go over it. I can't really set the camera up in the sandblasting cabinet. It just doesn't really... it destroys my camera. It will destroy my camera. The sandblasting cabinet is an incredibly terrible environment. But also, it's just not worth it. So what I am going to do here is I'm going to tape off a line. Pretty decent. Nice, as straight as I can get it line there. I'm going to tape this back. I'm not going to use electrical tape for the whole thing. I did find the electrical tape works really good to mask off in the sandblasting cabinet, and then I'll just wrap the rest of this with 2-inch tape if I can find it. For my fellow crafters and hobbyists, and artists, crafters, if you ever have the opportunity to if you ever have the opportunity to purchase this tape, it's Scotch 233 Plus. This is not frog tape. This is not the crap that you buy at Home Depot. You have to actually buy this at an auto body supply house. This is the best 2-inch tape that you can buy. It's $15 a roll. So you think about it before you use it, but that Scotch blue shit can kiss my ass. Fuck that shit. It's useless. Alright. Okay, so now we're all masked up for sandblasting. I knew I said I wasn't going to show the sandblasting. I'm actually not going to, but what I am going to do is show my sandblasting cabinet. So what I have here is a piece of shit Harbor Freight sandblasting cabinet that I bought literally probably 25 years ago. But that's just the case. That's just the cabinet itself. The rest of it has been highly modified. I changed out the hardware that holds the lens in because that sucked. I put better lighting inside of it. And this is the vacuum that came with it. The other thing I did, we don't need to listen to that, is I added this air water separator and a foot pedal that I scrounged off of a different tool. And I upgraded my handle here. This is a Scat Blast. So basically the entire inside of this thing is Scat Blast. It is not, and I repeat, it is not Harbor Freight. Just the box itself is Harbor Freight. I run it off of a 5 horsepower, big hot 5 horsepower compressor that I have outside. If you look at my other videos, you'll see, you see the compressor. I had a vibrator on it, but it was a cheap Harbor Freight oscillating sander, and it got grit in it, and that was the end of that. The sound of progress. I spilled my coffee about 2 minutes ago. I was very unhappy about it. Okay, so we're gonna unwrap this real quick. If anybody has any interest on another, I don't know whether or not I think I do have a video on how I modified that sandblasting cabinet, and I've done it multiple different times. That sandblasting cabinet has been assembled and disassembled more times than I can count. I know I shot video. Whether or not I actually posted it, I'm not sure. So we get a nice, really nice line there with the sandblaster. I should note or add a note that I am using recycled glass in my blasting cabinet, which I'm sure is not healthy, but nothing I do is healthy. I really like that angle, I think. All right, I'm going to put the light in it. All right, so put the light in, and it looks like we're going to have to give it a little help that way. So let me show what's going on here. And ironically, oh, you know what? Let's put some power to it. One of the nice things about working with low voltage stuff, now I know guys that actually do high voltage stuff this way, but you can work with it with the power running, and it's kind of like building a watch, you know, or rebuilding watches. I see guys, they work on them all the time with they're actually running. And if you haven't seen my watch building videos, I highly recommend watching those too. Alright, so there we go. So the light is on. And then when you stick the light in, it's so that's where the light goes to. And then when you stick it in there, I got that much light sticking out. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to heat this up, I think. I'm going to pick the correct angle. I'm actually going to put the light in it. Oh. Like I said, these are all a little different, so they all, like, this takes time to look at something and say, well, what is the greatest angle to look at this at all times? I'm going to turn the light off for a second. Ideally, I'd do this in a very dark room. But I don't have one right now. Well, I do. I could go in the bathroom, but I'm not taking my video camera into the bathroom. Okay. Now I have to make a little bit of a compromise here because this is crooked, and and they're all going to be crooked by their nature. I need to decide what is the best viewing angle. Oh, I like it, just like that. Okay. Now, I'm gonna get a magic marker out here, and I want to put a witness mark inside the piece.